that again, I guess.
Okay, President Matthew Clark,
Here.
Vice President Eric Sukumel,
Here.
Director Barbara Dye,
Here.
Director Nancy Marsh, and you're muted, and Director David Seaton. All present.
And we also have legal counsel.
Oh, I'm sorry. Chuck Duffy is also here, our General Manager, Bill Parkin, our legal counsel, and I'm Delia Comito, the forgetful Assistant Administrator.
All right, thank you. General public participation. Would anyone like to speak on any issues that are not on the agenda tonight?
I just want to mention that this is a week from Saturday. Originally, I thought it was this Saturday, but it's the 24th. It's our pickup special drop-off day at the Burnham property Recology. We'll be there to pick up your unwanted recyclable items.
What time does that start, Delia?
It's from 8 a.m. to 12 noon.
Ah, good. Thanks.
Hey, Delia, do they take electronic waste at this
Yes,
event, or does
they
that
do.
need to?
Anything with a cord they will take. And they actually may be taking mattresses again, but Chris hasn't decided yet, so I'll know probably by Monday.
And what's the date on that again?
April 24th, a week from Saturday.
Thank you. I always fight with my husband because he always wants to take stuff down there, and I'm like, no, I want that.
I love it. I get rid of a lot of stuff.
We have the opposite discussion. Take more. All right, well, let's move into the action agenda. Item 1, consideration of the county multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. And well, I don't know how to get this started, actually.
I can speak to it.
Okay.
So this is something the county is updating that is done regularly. The kind of impetus, the importance of it right now is the sense that there is going to be a lot of federal and state money out there for hazard mitigation and disaster preparedness that has not been available in the past, and that it behooves various agencies to join in and participate. GCSD has not in the past been part of it, but thanks to heroic work by our president, Matthew Clark, we signed up at the last possible minute. So they're going to be working there. Some deadlines coming up. Supposedly, the first information of what projects people have, it has to be done in by May 21st. But I have an email here that was actually sent to Greg Dieguez today from the woman who's putting this whole plan together, who's in charge of the process. And they're willing to work with various agencies to continue to add information and items as we go forward. There's kind of two areas where GCSD, as I see it, might get involved, and I'm not saying we should, and that's what we want to talk about tonight. One is not necessarily being the one to propose it or recommend that it be included, but to support inclusion of removal of eucalyptus trees on the medians, perhaps just in the form of a letter of support for including that in the plan with the county to obtain funding for that. That's something that's been discussed. And then the second thing is that, you know, the county's existing review of climate change and so forth, hazards, sea level rise and so forth, have recognized a number of issues at the SAM plant. Now, SAM can't be part of the hazard mitigation effort because it's a JPA and it's not a special district, and only special districts and cities and so forth can be part of it. But the three agencies that are, you know, part of SAM, that make up SAM, could each join together to support some kind of a hazard mitigation plan for SAM. And uh, the easiest thing is to do nothing here. It's pretty straightforward. If we don't, we just join in as part of this. But it seems like we should think about it a little bit, that this may be an opportunity while sort of there's a lot of attention being paid to the concept of going ahead and spending money on hazard mitigation, uh, how we could participate and what role, if any, we might play in placing something in this plan as a hazard that needs to be mitigated. So that's what I know at this point. And I know, Nancy, you were involved at one point. You went to one of the planning meetings too.
I went to one of their public meetings where they were just presenting what they were doing to the public for interest. And I can't remember. I might have got it from CERT. I think from a community emergency response team standpoint, the thing that emergency planning focuses on is in a major event like a major earthquake or fire. The major challenge is what if we are cut off from the rest of the peninsula because there's a landslide on 92 where they have to close the tunnels for some reason, either landslide or disruption in the road. And so the planning is around what will we do to get through a period of time when people can't get in and out unless they fly in or come in on a boat. So my thought was, if there are things in the SAM plans, emergency response plan, or our emergency response plan, which I did take a brief look at, that are dependent on services coming from over the hill, that's an area for disaster planning and disaster mitigation they should probably focus on, because that's, according to Dave Cosgrove, the fire chief, that is one of the most likely scenarios in the immediate aftermath of a big emergency, is lack of access to the coast for services that are coming from the other side of the hill. So that, I don't know if they are incorporating that kind of thinking, but that's I think for the plant and for our plan that are more like emergency response plans in case of overflows or something, it's hard to see that they have what if there's a major community disaster? What are your most likely events and what would you do about them? So I support actually finding a way to make sure that SAM has a good disaster mitigation plan that is made available to this effort so that they are aware of it and can access it. And I don't know if they do or not. On the other thing you mentioned, I certainly support removal of eucalyptus trees on the El Granada medians, but I struggle with whether that is something which is in GCSD's jurisdiction, because our use.
I understand that. I was just saying that maybe we would express support for someone else doing including that as a proposal. That was
It
all.
would have to be Public Works, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But when they discussed
keeps
at
coming
last
up.
night's.
Yeah.
Well, Public Works is accountable for managing the medians, but according to them, the owners, the adjacent homeowners own the land, and I wonder if they think that means the adjacent homeowners should pay for removing trees, which would make all of us glad we don't have homes on the medians. But that,
sitting through the meeting last night, the MCC meeting, and the whole discussion of dealing with the eucalyptus threat for El Granada, I couldn't help thinking that, they were talking about a plan as if one exists, but there doesn't seem to be a plan. It seems to me the most valuable thing would be for somebody, not us, to put together a plan.
well, they were talking about the project, but the project is actually defining and developing a project.
Yeah.
None of them were there to talk about the medians. They were there to talk about the park. And generally their hazard mitigation plans, but they needed somebody from DPW there to talk about medians and what's immediately next to the road. But I know I'm going off on a tangent that's not our topic, so I'll stop.
And it's not just the medians. There are eucalyptus trees all around the backside, the landward side of Granada as well, that pose a great risk.
Yeah,
so
they seem to throw their hands up at the ones that are on private property. Because even in Quarry Park, a quarter of the trees are on private property at the back of Quarry Park.
So my feeling is I'm not sure what kind of a role we can play here. I think Delia, you are technically, it's a staff, generally they work with the staff of the various agencies to see what's there. I realize that, this isn't something that's really in your scope. I don't know if there's really tonight, I thought we should talk about it, but I'm just not sure that there's much that we can how we would interact with this process that is underway in a way that's appropriate for the scope of what GCSD can do.
Whether or not we participate in the multi-jurisdictional planning process, I would hope that SAM has not just an emergency overflow mitigation plan, but that they have a disaster recovery, a proper disaster recovery plan.
I don't think so.
Because that's something the jurisdictions could do with SAM that they don't need to do in concert with the multi-jurisdictional effort.
So it seems that the 3 member agencies, there's no way that we could, as a triumvirate, plug SAM into this process at all?
No, I
Or
think
get-
we could. I
Or get
actually
any
think
kind
we
of
could.
money?
But we'd have to have Sam take the lead in what they wanted us to do. You have to have some kind of coherent project, like raising the electrical room, which is identified in the hazard plan that the county did a few years ago. But I don't know. I've been talking to Sam. I'm not sure that's really on their radar right now, and I'm not sure it makes sense. Chuck, I sort of asked you about this, and it felt like you weren't sure that that was a priority.
And I haven't looked in great detail, obviously, because I'm not managing SAM, but the first time they trotted this up, it was a hugely expensive project to move it to higher ground. And I kind of remember a crazy number like $20 million, or that could be wrong. But it was a big number. And there's a lot of other ways you could mitigate that hazard. So, and Barbara, to maybe Nancy's point as well, Sam has that sewer system management plan, which you just discovered. They've got one there as well. And they definitely have an overflow mitigation and prevention plan. I don't know how deep they go into the emergency planning stuff. You'd have to ask them.
Does this address slope hazards like sea level rise caused by climate change?
Yes. Yes.
Well, yeah, the California Ocean Protection Council is advising that everybody get ready for the sea level to rise 3.5 feet by 2050.
This
Yeah.
is focused on natural disasters, not environmental disasters. Natural, like sea, it says it's sea level. Natural disasters associated with sea level rise, coastal erosion, and other hazards that can impact and damage sewer and water systems. And several water and sewer districts are part of the county's multi-jurisdictional local hazard mitigation existing plan. So I don't know. Should we, I guess part of it is, do we even spend much time on this to try to make something happen? Or do we just say there's not an obvious way that we can be part of, be part of this? Or should we try to do something?
Well, does it
The greatest
have
focal point is the
assets that
trend.
we need to plan for disaster? Seems
Well-
like most of them are SAM assets. But
Yeah.
they're in our district.
Yeah, Sam's got the most risk exposure, obviously. I mean, we've got such a simple thing, we've got the Naples Beach pump station, which
Oh,
would
Chuck
be
Rose.
subject to sea rise. I don't know what sea level that's at. It's probably similar to what Sam's at, just thinking geographically.
The paved part of SAM ranges from 17 to 19 feet above sea level.
Oh, wow. Oh, okay. I didn't
Yeah.
realize that.
Well,
Someone told me
if Google Earth is accurate.
Well, if that's the case, we don't think we have a lot to worry about because, as I said to Sam and someone else, it's, you know, we don't know what's going to happen with sea level rise. It might be a foot in 30 years and it might be 3 foot in 30 years. You know, we don't know. So, but certainly we'll know better in 10.
There's also tsunamis, however.
Yeah.
Earthquakes.
Almost
And-
never happen here.
And flooding from Pilichados Creek, which is literally right next to the SAM facility.
Does the creek go through the Kehoe ditch?
No,
But the creek is, you know, it's within a few feet of the SAM property line.
that's right. It
mean-
goes around on the north side, right around the fence.
It's less than 10 feet away.
Oh, wow. All right.
It's right there.
I think the
That-
Kehoe ditch empties into the creek before it gets to the ocean, but I haven't checked that.
So is there anything, should we, maybe, you know, I'm not sure what we should do in this. I don't really have a constructive suggestion, but I feel as if maybe we should keep this on the agenda and just, in discussions with Sam, look to see if there are some projects that we could support. And keep an open, oh, good. Delia, what do you think?
Well, I just thought that maybe if you could form a committee and we could talk about it. My understanding of what this was is a little different and I know very little. So I'd like to get a little bit more involved in understanding and, you know, I did speak with somebody that is involved in this who sent me the forms to fill out. And they said that nothing would preclude us from including our percentage of what we own in SAM as far as our assets, including them as our asset. So if all 3 member agencies did that, then we could potentially cover, I think, SAM. I don't know for sure, but it sounds like it's a possibility.
Yeah, I would think so. If all 3 agencies decided to put a project in for SAM, I think that would qualify for consideration then. Then it's just, that's the thing. It's only then consideration for funding. But the sense is that there's going to be a lot of money coming around in the next year or so.
So this will take some more study. I want to acknowledge Delia and commend her, actually. She's already put a bunch of time into this, especially after I saw the forms and the format requirements Tetra Tech sent out. Yeah, just listing the assets and all this other stuff they want. And this is just part 1. And then there's a part 2 that's due in only a few days. Is that right, Delia?
They're actually, I was under the understanding that they've allowed me to submit both as of May 31st, but I think phase 1 is basically duplicated in phase 2. It looks like a lot of the same questions at the beginning of phase 2 were in phase 1. And I haven't really had time to look at it too closely, so I don't know for sure, but the phase 2, they are asking for a lot more information. So it will be somewhat time consuming. But I'm willing to do it if the board wants to be involved in this.
And let's look at outsourcing it to John Rayner if necessary.
Sure.
To another engineer, because that's really who should be leading this charge. You know, and speaking to Sam, if Sam has some issues they want addressed and they want to get funding for, I think we talked about this, maybe not with you all, but with the member agencies, of Sam should generate that list and send it out to the 3 member agencies. And that way they can define their needs. And if we're all in support of it, we can bring our 20% and whatnot there.
Well, I'm happy to, as one of the SAM reps, to continue to try to work with Sam on this. And I think let's just investigate it more. If Delia's willing to work on a little bit, I think that will help a lot. And we can bring it back and just see where we are. It sounds as if from what she sent today, that even though there are some deadlines, they're going to be flexible. They would rather have a comprehensive document than have rigid deadlines.
What would the cost be outside of putting all the information together?
Nothing for us.
Well, if we utilize John Rayner, it'd just be his time.
What do you estimate that to be roughly?
And Delia's valuable time.
Yeah.
Right. David, I can't even estimate because these things become quagmires sometimes pretty
Yeah.
quickly. That's what I said when I saw the word multi-jurisdictional. You know, I took to the hills and ran, as you probably all noticed. So I don't have time for tens of Zoom meetings with these people, and we're such a small part of this planning.
And have you ever dealt with Tetra Tech? I don't know if anyone else has, but
Yeah.
a monster corporation and as bureaucratic as any government agency.
Right. So, yeah, I think to Barbara's point, I don't know that we've got anything to do. Certainly you all can bring it up at the next SAM meeting and, you know, maybe Delia have another conversation with these people, see what's happening before we decide to dive into something. I also, you know, I also get leery of identifying hazardous projects, you know, that you identify it, and if you don't get funding, you're on the map as identifying it. You know, what I've taken Sam to task for years, don't identify a problem and not do anything about it.
Well, maybe we just do a small amount of follow through and
Yeah.
take a look at this again, but not make this a high priority. Does that seem
I
like
think that's a good plan, yeah.
How do you think Sam and Half Moon Bay would react to the idea that Sam should form a committee?
I think it
I don't
makes
know.
sense. I think it makes sense.
Yeah, even though they can't actually be members of this, whatever it's called.
Well, I know Kishan has some projects that he's submitted for funding already for under other things through EPA and so forth. And maybe one of them would qualify. Again, maybe this, well, I don't want to keep going on this because I'm not sure it really goes anywhere, but it seems like we signed up for it and we need to at least try to figure out where we stand on it. So it sounds like some follow-up without any commitments.
I think that's a good plan.
And how does it relate to the fire danger issue? Do we have any idea?
Well, there have been people pushing for including the fire danger, the eucalyptus issue as a hazard that could potentially qualify for funding. Again, we are not in a position to take responsibility for hazard mitigation in terms of the eucalyptus. I think at the very least, at some point, we could write a letter of support, but I don't see that as something that we could take the lead on in any way. So
Michelle informed me in the chat that I left the meeting after the presentations last night, the MCC meeting, and didn't stick around for the Q&A, but she said at 9:04, Don Horsley committed to pushing the county to take responsibility for the medians. And so we could send a letter in support of that initiative and convey what we've heard from the adjacent homeowners about their concerns of it being an easement, and then where does the liability for something happening on the medians really lie if they are on easements that the homeowners have accountability for. Because they were told by the county that it's kind of like the sidewalk. You're responsible for whatever happens on the sidewalk in front of your house here, and you have to replace the sidewalk if it's not in good condition. And they can get liability insurance that covers the sidewalk in front of their house, but they explored it and they can't get liability insurance that covers the median that's across the street from their house. And so it seems an insoluble problem. So I think we could write, this is the community feedback that we got about challenges with the county's position that the medians are easements, and certainly in support of the county taking full responsibility for them. I also could identify, the adjacent homeowners who raised those great concerns and drop them a note and suggest they write their personal letters of support as well.
That's a good idea.
I mean, do we have standing to such as it were?
It's hard for me to see how we have standing since we have a use permit that we have not made use of. If we
Yeah.
had a playground on a median that was surrounded by eucalyptus trees, then I think we would, but we really don't have any assets on the medians.
And I'd agree with that. And our use agreement gives us responsibility when we build the park of anything basically vertically above it.
But it doesn't also contain language acknowledging that the trees are on the medians are county responsibility.
I can't remember. Jonathan opined that because he looked at the deeds back in 1904 or 1906 or 1910, whenever it was away, because we got a lot of pressure, you'll remember, from the homeowners to kind of weigh in on it. And we said, well, we agree with you. We don't think it's yours, but it's not our issue. Again,
Our lawyers agree with
right.
them. Well,
But
The county does, clean up after them, and they take out the ones that are dead and dying, and they come periodically and trim off branches. Basically, they seem to focus on anything that might interfere with the road. And they do clean up some of the duff that collects underneath them, the eucalyptus trash that collects underneath them. So they have assumed a maintenance responsibility. I'm not sure that they have assumed liability for anything that happens there. And when they take them out, they don't replant them. So I'd rather they had a plan that said, we're going to take out the eucalyptus and we're going to plant appropriate parkland trees.
I sort of feel like we're not ready to write a letter of any kind of support at this point, but that we might consider it in the future if there was a specific proposal that we thought we could advocate on behalf of the residents of El Granada, which I guess we are allowed to do. But at this point, it doesn't seem ready.
So we'll see where Horsley goes with it.
Are we talking about a letter to the county or to
don't know.
this? Pardon? We
Without
don't
a
know.
proposal, we don't even know where we'd send a letter. I think
Yeah.
we're just saying that generally we do care about it, and if we could help in some way, we would, but we don't really have jurisdiction, and let's see, maybe something will come together that we could indicate support for.
I'm just trying to understand if there's any tie-in with the hazard mitigation plan that
Well,
may
Not
run
for
into
us,
some money.
no.
Well, if
Not
there
for
was a
us.
proposal for hazard mitigation, really big dollars, I suppose we could write a letter saying good idea, but it would
Yeah.
just be us saying good idea, not saying we're weighing in as people who have a vested.
I think Bart, we could convey what we have heard from the community
Yeah.
about the issues with the medians, with our community outreach.
And as Chuck just mentioned, the money is not going to come to us, but we can advocate that the county allocate money, however appropriately, improve fire protection.
So again, I think we need to wait on that, but indicate that it's something we're going to follow and pay attention to.
Yeah, I think I agree in terms of something more specific is, outside of being effective, I think if we could more specific, we could be on anything would be beneficial for, and maybe even that's where we could revisit the idea of a median project that we could, pick up the cost for the whole median to clear it. And then, that could be the first park that we could get going. And then, as we go, I think we could pick up some costs for as we, do other areas, if we go that route. Otherwise, yeah, it's going to be their responsibility. When things go bad, it's their responsibility for getting ahead of it, clearing out everything below, so, but yeah, anything specific would be better.
I think with our LAFCO remit, we can only spend our money if it's for a recreation project. We can't spend it just for clearing or beautification.
Yeah.
Correct.
All right.
Uh, Matthew, Fran's got her hand up.
Where do you see that? I believe you, but Fran,
Yeah.
you're muted.
Hi, I'm here.
You're on.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I was hoping, yeah, I'm much more concerned about fire in El Granada than a tsunami. And I was hoping you would at least support the community. I mean, the whole coast side is concerned about this. There's quite a group now getting involved in protecting or doing something to prevent a fire here in Quarry Park, especially. That was a concern of the meeting last night. I attended that. It went till 11 o'clock. I think they said something like 85 or 95 people were on at the beginning of the meeting. I think 35 of us stuck it out to the end. And there's lots of concern. They had the fire chief there, and I think the sheriff and county parks and county and Supervisor Horsley. And yes, Horsley did say that he thinks that they probably will look into taking responsibility for the trees in the medians. Nicholas Calderon had a plan to kind of make like a fire break road all around the edge, the lower edge now, because they actually did do El Granada Boulevard, although there's 4 homes that are planning to cut the eucalyptus around their homes up there. And I don't know, you're the only government agency here in El Granada. I should think you'd be concerned about a fire, because not only the eucalyptus in El Granada, everybody's got big bushy trees all around their homes. If a fire takes place in Quarry Park, it's going to catch on, and in the community, it's going to wipe out this community. And I don't want to see that happen again. Any community get wiped out. And I think I asked them to allocate more money. Governor Newsom said that yesterday morning, that he was going to allocate a lot more money for fire prevention in California, giving more money to the counties. So I suggested they use it for prevention rather than preparing for a fire. And I don't know, how about Mr. Parkin? What do you think about all this? Can the Granada district legally take a stand on this as protecting your own community and your own property, the property of your constituents? Can I get an answer?
I was just waiting for some direction, but
I thought you were, and nobody was asking you.
I think it's a policy question for the board to decide to weigh in. It's clearly the medians are not the responsibility of GCSD, and we do have an agreement if we were to do some recreational activity out there, as everyone has said, but I think it's a policy question for the board ultimately.
So they can do it if I mean, it's not wrong or for them to take a stand or be supportive of the county. I guess you would go to the county, support their efforts, their involvement. The county parks, they've got a big long list of all the parks listed and how much money they've assigned to each park in the county and for what purposes. And really, based on the list, they don't have as much for El Granada as they do for some of the bigger or other parks south of in the South County and around. And I said, we're probably one of the highest density population community the county has, and county is our only government agency. We're not part of a city, so they do owe us more, I think. And we all feel like we're being neglected again. So I would hope you'd ask for that, support us on that. Yes, no?
Fran, can
Yeah.
you relate at the MCC meeting, what did Cal the fire district and CAL FIRE weigh in? What did they have to say about fire danger locally?
They're just they're mostly talking about we should prepare on our own to go to know where to go if there's a fire. If you see it to the north, then go to the south. If you see it in this a smoke coming from the south, then go to the north. And of course, we know it's all going to be gridlock on the highway. They've said there could be, you can go to the airport and you can, as a staging place, and a couple other areas. They didn't mention the harbor. That's where guess we're the closest. It's what I figured we'd have to go, because I doubt we'd get very far on the highway. This is our only way in and out of here. So I don't know. It's really very disturbing. And
Sorry, Fran, this is Nancy. Rich Sampson, who was from CAL FIRE,
yeah,
the point of his presentation seemed to be a lot of people are asking for complete eradication of the eucalyptus. And from what we estimate that would cost, it's probably simply never going to be feasible from a cost standpoint to get the amount of money it would take to do that. Therefore, we're focusing on shaded fuel breaks and the fuel that is along evacuation type routes, and the fuel along the ground that would go up the trees. He didn't really address the danger of a crown fire or what you do from there. From there they went to Dave Crosgo talking about finding the temporary respite areas and when to evacuate. But they're focusing on reducing risk, and said they're not going to be able to. They don't believe that they would ever get a project through to take out all the eucalyptuses.
well, I know. And I said, well, no, I don't think we expect you to take them all out, but you can do a border, like a fire road all around the edges of that attached to the community. And so you spend some money now. I said, I think you should spend the majority of the money right now, because this year is the driest year we've ever had here. And we need to do something now. You need to prepare for it now. The spring before, summer is in 2 months, and this weekend's supposed to be another really hot weekend again, and dry, and we've gotten very little rain at all this year. So it's so dry. I'm really concerned. And if they're going to get more money from the feds, then I think put it to that. So you spend several $1 million. It's better than the town blowing up, and then it's going to cost billions to rebuild and destroy. And how many, 6,000 or 7,000 people homeless again, or another 6,000 or 7,000 people homeless that are in the district. So, it makes no sense not to take a stand or not to do something proactive. And Barbara, you were saying you could support somebody. Do you want the community to write something and you would support the community, or I'm not clear what you meant?
I think there needs to be some kind of proposal other than do something.
I think we're kind of getting off track here, because from what I'm reading of the questions that they're asking, they want us to basically be able to maintain our facilities in the event of a hazard. So it's not like a general overall help the community thing. It's more like, how are we going to maintain the services that we provide to the community should there be a disaster that affects our infrastructure? And that's what this is about. So they're gathering information right now. And I don't know a lot about it, but they want to know what our infrastructure is, what the value of it is, how we would address the public if we had a problem, that kind of thing. So fires, we're not addressing trees here. We're addressing how our sewer system would be affected and how we would protect it and the community within our jurisdiction and our facilities if there was a disaster that affected them. So we can't really go beyond
Yeah.
that
And,
we're not, yeah.
and I think as scary as it is, I mean, we start talking about tsunamis and then for sure sea level rise and then earthquakes. I mean, we can't solve everything. All we can do is protect our infrastructure and do what's best in the community. We could support specific other projects, you know, that are defined, but outside of that, we can't solve every problem. There's nothing we could do. It's not realistic. So I think anything we could specifically support in any of these areas, and you know, in all areas, what we can do to protect our infrastructure, I think it's cooperate. And
And I think the bigger issue is how prepared we are to address our potential problems if there is, you know, a disaster. You know, what happens? I mean, I don't know. If we have a flood and we've got sewage going all over the place, you know, what do we do? Do we have a team together? Do we know, you know, how do we address? How do we put out information? That's what this plan is about. They're trying to consolidate.
Yeah, and to Delia's point, yeah, we're getting off topic here. It's not on the agenda. So I think we got to focus on our infrastructure. Like Delia said, we'll talk to these people one more time, see what's out there, and move forward from that.
Well, it appears that there isn't much conjunction between this hazard mitigation plan and if there's any money involved with it and our specific facilities, because most of our assets are sort of fireproof, except the office, obviously, but and because they're underground. And when in a fire, the sewers should continue to function. Even if we lose power, we'll still have some function. But I know this is a bit off topic, but I think we need to adopt a policy that we want to support our community. And if we have a giant fire and that town burns down, it really messes with our parks and recreation opportunities.
Yeah. Well, I think if a proposal, you know, we're not at the deadline. I think if any kind of coherent proposal comes together, I'm prepared to support it. I just don't think it's useful for us right now to write just sort of a general letter that says, somebody do something. We all feel that way, but I don't think that's helpful for us or the role we should play. But I think if a coherent proposal that affects, you know, open space in El Granada and issues like that, I'm prepared to support at least a letter of support. Throw what we, you know, do what we can to help make that a reality. So that's where I think we are in that. I agree it's a big problem.
I agree that if there is a proposal that needs community support, we could support it, having heard a lot about this from the community and convey the sentiments we've heard from the community as well.
Can I ask a question? Who are you expecting to do the proposal? Somebody in the community, and then you'll support that?
Fran, my understanding is that Horsley suggested he would follow up for the county to take responsibility for them. So when we know more about what formal process that takes, that's when we could write a letter of support.
So the first target should be the county, but I think we also have to address the fire district and CAL FIRE and whoever at the state level is appropriate to get some of this money that Feds and Newsom are talking about. Because it's tremendously expensive to take out big eucalyptus trees.
Yeah. And then do the habitat restoration that's necessary afterwards. People have to keep that in the budget. So, right.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we didn't.
How about if I report back at the next meeting what I find out when I talk to them, and if we go ahead and submit the paperwork, I think it will be just after our next meeting. So I'll have some time to get some more information and fill out the paperwork. So
a lot of us are interested in the whole issue of eucalyptus, and will continue to stay engaged and pay attention to what's going on.
Okay, everybody's fine with what Delia just said, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, let's move to item number 2, consideration of changes to the district's personnel manual. This is for preliminary board review.
Hey, Delia, you want to give some background on this? Delia, or maybe I'll just let you go.
That's up to you. Well, we wanted to have you take a look at this because the approved personnel manual that's currently in place looks quite different than the one we're going to be proposing. And that's mainly just because we're reorganizing it to make it a little bit more logical in terms of, you know, how things are organized within it. And I've been working on this for a year. So, you know, initially we were trying to gear it more towards SAM policies, and then Chuck and I had some discussions, and then we went another direction. And so I kind of feel like I've gone back and forth on certain sections, but the most important aspects, and I've actually put them in a different color font in what was provided to you. And it is a draft. It can change quite a bit, but the main change was the at-will clause. I think Chuck will agree to that. And, you know, I'll go through some of the more major points when we have the salary schedule and all that, but this was really just more or less to give you an idea of, you know, what we were going to be presenting. And a lot of the language is the same. And I've basically provided you a draft that shows you what has changed. So, and none of it's really financially substantial. There's a couple of things that we were kind of pairing towards what Sam has. They have a lot more holidays than us. They have quite a few more vacation and sick days than us. They have more benefits than us. So we're just trying to kind of get a little bit more on par with what is given to them. So
Who has more holidays?
they do.
They who?
Sam. Yeah, we were adding Cesar Chavez. That was one of the changes. And we were adding Christmas Eve. They also have New Year's Eve off as well. So we originally,
Yeah.
I think, had 10 holidays. They have 13.
I noticed that we're now proposing, it looks like 14, and there are 11 state holidays and only 10 federal holidays. So that's a significant difference.
Well,
Actually, technically, there are 11 federal holidays, but one of them's Inauguration Day every 4 years.
I did some numbers, like this was a couple of years ago, and based upon what policies we had versus Sam's policies, their employees who had been here for 20 years, the same length as me, had a whole 55 days more days off, paid days off than I did over that time frame. So it does add up over time. So, but I was trying to kind of meet them.
Yeah, I appreciated the highlighted version because I printed them out so I could look at them side by side, and that you were right, they don't really work side by side.
Yeah.
So I just went through the highlights, but with, you know, an ex-HR person's eye. And actually there's, you know, there are a couple little things here and there, but the major concern I had was not with the, say, intent of the compensation session. I think we should be on par and competitive with similar types of businesses and roles on the coast side and similar types of management and administrative jobs. I just thought it could be dramatically simpler. So I would say good to be on par in terms of what is the outcome of the compensation policy with Sam and the other agencies, but we could do it something that's much more simpler for those of you who manage people to manage, rather than adopting kind of Sam's more technical, staff-oriented, multiple steps and multiple dates and multiple events. And I'd be happy actually to take that offline and have a conversation with you about.
That would be great.
Really, really fairly simple with just salary ranges and the way to do reviews and COLA and other updates that could be.
Yeah, Chuck and I talked about both ways. And so I kind of, like I said, you know, initially we were looking at just ranges without steps, and then we went back to steps. We have 5 steps, Sam has 7, so I expanded it to 7. So I'm really open. Again, I was just going by what we had to compare to, but I would love your input.
In my experience, even for scientists, we didn't really have steps, but we had a way to do performance-related increases and cost of living increases, and kind of ways to make sure that the salary ranges stay in line with the market. And I think those are, the key is always to make sure that you pay what you need to pay to get what you need to get.
Well, this isn't so much about the numbers. It was about the frequency, because we initially had ours set up for 1 review a year and 1 increase a year, whereas Sam was receiving 2 increases throughout the 12-month period. But again, I'm open. Another issue is the parks position was added here. And there were a couple other things that have changed, but again, it's not real substantial.
Yeah, I had one comment on the parks position, but it's a little bit minor, but what I can kind of take that with you.
Okay. Yeah,
I think
we just wanted to give you an idea of what we're working on. So no action is, looked for tonight, and we'll bring this back at our next meeting with hopefully maybe a little cleaner salary resolution and whatnot.
I mean, the one thing Nancy was saying at the end, where she was saying compared to the market, I think that's kind of my key, because half the year we're saying Sam is completely ridiculously overpaid in some areas, and it's not in line with other agencies. And then so I think we have to go through the same process in terms of trying to hold them accountable and looking at other comparative agencies and with anything financial, and compare it that way instead of just to Sam as well. But I think outside that, the holidays and a lot of other things I think need to be updated. And so I think there's ways. So I think,
and that's who we're gonna,
that's
who we're gonna benchmark to, David. Not just Sam. They're the simple one, because 70% of our budget goes there. So, but we benchmark to City of Half Moon Bay and other places too.
Director Dye.
I just wanted to say we're very lucky to have Nancy on the board here. She has many, many years of experience in human relations, and she ran all this for very, very large multinational corporations. So I'm wondering if she'd be willing to work with staff to refine this and come up with something better, because I have total confidence in her
I'm
ability
happy to advise.
do a great job on this, to help with this. So
all those years might as well be useful.
yeah.
One notable difference that I saw right away is there's no job descriptions. What are people responsible to do? And
I actually was taking those out of the manual itself so that they could be regularly updated when needed. So I made them as separate items, but I did not attach them here, but I do have them, and we've provided them in the past, and they have been updated a little bit, because initially they weren't that great.
The manual should say you have them, but they don't have to be in the manual.
Yeah, it just makes it easier to make changes without having to bring it to the board every time.
Okay. Any other questions?
Nancy, if you want to give me, or I'll contact you tomorrow and we'll set up a time, and that'd be great if everybody else is okay with that. Wish you were here a couple of years ago. Would have made my job a lot easier.
I think that's an excellent idea.
Yeah, that's great. Okay.
Okay, any other okay. Item number 3, report on sewer authority mid-coastside meeting. Barbara, do you want to do this? Do you want me to talk about something, or?
Why don't you talk about what operations discussed, and I'll talk about, I can talk briefly about Sam. Well, let me just say, Sam is about to take up the budget, as we mentioned earlier. I would say that the process is far better than it's been in the past. The Finance Committee looked at the budget today. It was approved by all three agency managers, which we think is a very important part of the SAM process, is to have the input from the three agency managers. And if the SAM manager disagrees, he's free to say that in the staff report, but we need to incorporate the feedback from all three managers in the process of looking at changes, or, decisions that are made at SAM. I will say that there are essentially two separate budgets. The collections budget is the contract that all three agencies have with SAM to manage our maintenance of the lines, the sewer lines. So the cleaning, the regular cleaning and so forth. And that budget will be going up a bit because they're going to buy a new smaller truck. The big truck that they have was bought in 2015. It's still doing fine, but their other two trucks were bought, I think, in 2002 and 2005. The 2005 one doesn't work anymore. So they're going to buy another truck that will enable them to be even more responsive to community needs. And I think Sam has a really good track record of being there when there are issues with plug drains and so forth, just judging with how quickly they came when we had a problem at my house. But also seeing them around and know that they're out there working and cleaning the lines all the time. So I think we should feel good about the collections budget. They've shifted some funds, so the personnel costs have gone up a bit, but that's because some administrative costs have been moved out of the regular budget into collections. So the separate collections budget looks good. It looks bigger because it has a truck. The regular SAM budget, I think we've already talked about the infrastructure budget, which is $2.4 million this year. There's going to be quite a bit of repair and of various items at the SAM facility. A lot of the other items are either the same or a little bit lower. So this will be coming to our board, I think, at our next meeting. I'm not 100% sure, but I think so. Either the next meeting or the one after for our approval, and then it will go back to SAM for final approval. So the finances of SAM, I think we have a much better handle on them and the backing of where all the numbers come from than we did in the past. So feel good about the finances of SAM.
Is personnel still the single largest expenditure?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah.
And they have one vacant position, which during COVID they haven't filled because they were concerned about training, the ability to do training properly, but they are going to fill that soon. So.
Okay, at the March 22nd meeting, the board authorized signing a contract with Brown and Caldwell for the wastewater treatment plant capacity and treatment process review study. So that is started, and I think we're going to have that in June. I think they were going to jump on it, Brown and Caldwell, and get it done relatively fast. We approved a $25,000 increase for legal costs, bringing the total to not exceed $325,000 over 3 years. In the director's report, Director Lohman, who is the chair and progenitor of the SAM 2040 committee, he would like this thing seems to be shifting into a really strong focus on what we're going to do about recycled water. And so he stated that he would like each member agency to come up with some kind of idea or preference about what they would like to do ultimately in the realm of recycled water. Largely, this is because somewhere down the road, they're anticipating ocean outfalls not being re-permitted. And I don't know if that will happen or when, but I think it's actually more critical across the hill where they're still, dumping effluent into the bay. So maybe we should form an ad hoc committee to discuss this and to relate to Sam what GSD thinks about recycled water. And this is not such, it's not, recycled water itself is a really complicated issue, but it's more than that because they're also talking about massive changes at SAM, including up to individual treatment plants and effluent systems for the three three member agencies. So where this will go, or if anywhere, I cannot predict, but what does the board think? Is anybody willing to serve on a committee and research recycled water and what we should do about it?
I would be willing to do it.
Okay.
Well, I mean, we're all in favor of recycled water, right? I mean, I think it's
If
more
we
of
could
like-
use it at the park.
Yes, well, that's something that we're gonna, yeah.
We're gonna need to
Um,
build a lot of parks.
And I think to what scale, you know, I mean, that's where some of these, we could spend so much money and what's the ultimate return versus, you know, again, partnering up maybe with other specific opportunity where other funds could be leveraged or other opportunities.
I don't know. I think Sam is going to be working on the recycled water issue and that we should be prepared to participate in it. I don't know that we need to do our own independent research on this. But others may think so. I don't know. But that's sort of my feeling is that we should continue to work with this overarching process because Sam was actually well on the way to doing it. And in my conversations with Kishan, the head of Sam, he wants to restart the process of Sam looking at recycled water there. So I'm not sure this is something we need to take a lead on, but if people want to, that's fine.
Well, we could express that GCSD's opinion is Sam should do this. And that's the only logical way to come up with recycled water program. One of the problems with that is the program that got shot down last time only had one customer, the golf courses. And if Sam is forced to begin to recycle a much larger percentage of their inflow and not put it back in the ocean, we need more customers because when it rains, if it rains, the golf courses don't need very much water. And so it has to go somewhere. And like I said, this is really complicated. Just, you know, saying that we're in favor of recycled water is like, well, it's like writing a letter to the county and saying, do something, you know? So
Yes, well, there's recharge. There's other things that, you know, can be done, but yeah.
Yeah, there are.
There are, but I mean, I tend to agree that as long as all of our collection goes to Sam for treatment, it's logical that Sam would lead the analysis of potential options for reuse or other beneficial uses of the treated water.
Yeah, and I've actually, not that surprising, I guess, but have a lot of experience with this. We did 3 treatment plants that went to recycled water. We used golf courses. We've used avocado fields. We've used horse fodder fields as recycled water. This is a SAM issue. I don't think it's a committee issue at any level at this point in time until we figure out a lot of this technical stuff, because you've got to get rid of 1.4 million gallons of water a day. That's a lot a day, a lot of water per day. And the recycled water discussion starts with demand. Because if you don't have any, like we had up in Ramona, you have to start paying people to take your recycled water because you don't have demand. So it starts with demand, and you work your way there. It is a problem that your only customer is the golf course, but the nice thing about the golf course is they can take 500,000 gallons a day. When you start, we looked at this, Matthew, when I was up in Ramona as well, and they have a lot of small farms up there. And we looked at creating a recycled water network. That's a permitting issue. Every single person there, and I won't get too far into the technical details, they have to become registered as a recycled water supervisor. There's a lot of issues there. So I think I emailed someone previously about this. Your best bet up there is groundwater recharge, surface water. They talked about Pillarcitos Creek or whatever the creek is down further south there. And irrigation. You're going to need a combination of things because you've got too much water and your climate isn't, there's too much rain. Down here we have sun at least, and we have a lot of golf courses. So
and they probably irrigate the golf courses year round, right?
Yeah, we irrigate year round, and a golf course in Ramona, the Valley of the Sun, can take 900,000 gallons in a day during the summer. Yeah, so it's a lot. Yeah. So.
And we have rocket farms, and there are ways to do it, but then you also have issues with the brine that's left over and the waste materials. I think we're all supportive of moving forward with this, but I don't know that we're ready to. I don't know.
Yeah, and the first shot they took at this was a little bit of ill-fated. I kind of laughed at it because I saw some of the issues they raised, and Northern California is a little bit behind Southern California in the recycled water stuff. They're talking about water quality issues that I would kill for down here. Their TDS was 450 and they were crying about it. Our drinking water is 550. So, we don't, that's not a salt problem, that's the salt solution. But anyway, I think it's a technical issue, and I think it's a SAM issue. I don't think, our broad support should be enough, I think. That's my 2 cents.
The SAM committee is asking for is consider the nuts and bolts and how would you like to move forward? And, but I can go back based on what the board has said today, and it makes sense to me, and just say GCSD thinks that recycled water is a great idea, and there's only one logical candidate to do it, and that's Sam.
Yeah.
Am I having deja vu, or do I feel like we keep talking about things that we need to do and must be done, but nothing we can really do about it outside of general support?
Yeah. I do feel like that. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just the summary of what it is with a lot of it. But
one more thing on the SAM report, which is that the wet weather storage should be finished by the end of April. It's moving along just fine. And then they will be doing a hydro seeding of the property. Once they're done, they'll put the topsoil back and the hydro seeding. I had the RCD review the seed mix, and they said it was fine. So they will be hydro seeding the property when it's done, and then hopefully we won't. There won't be any more trace that wet weather storage is there than there was of the previous set of boxes under the ground. So,
Barbara, did we determine whether or not they are hauling any dirt away? Because that could be used for
they are hauling dirt away. They are stockpiling and re-spreading the topsoil. Right now, I don't think it's practical to. I agree that it would have been good to keep the dirt.
Just spread it.
Yeah, I don't know the answer.
Matthew brought this up a year ago when we first talked about it, because we have so much grading to do for the park and to build up some areas so that you can see over the highway to the views. It'd be a shame, a year and a half from now buying dirt.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it would. And I brought this up again with Kishan recently, and he said it was in their
Well, you're talking
scope.
about the topsoil. They're
The topsoil.
stockpiling the topsoil.
Right.
No, I meant all the dirt, because we'll need more than topsoil for the park to do the kind of mounds and um, topography that's proposed.
Yeah, I mean the problem, and I'm sure the reason Sam's not enthusiastic about it, is they would have to manage those stockpiles until it was time. I don't know that they would get the blessing to just spread it around and walk away.
Didn't know of our environmental review of that. So I did mention it to the contractor, at one point when I was on the site, and they said, "Oh, that'd be great. We'd much rather not haul the dirt away." But
Oh yeah, nobody
maybe-
wants to
maybe-
offload it and truck it off, but
yeah.
Maybe RCD can, I mean, it would certainly bury all the invasive species.
And I think the first project we did, I made that same point because I might have even done a calculation of how many cubic yards of dirt it was, what it would raise the property. And it wasn't a lot because hauling dirt's expensive, as we all know.
Yes. Yeah, and I don't know how the contractors may be a bit disingenuous because they don't just haul it off and pay some.
Yeah, they sell it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and Nancy, I think we're going to end up with more than just topsoil because it doesn't look like they've been real scrupulous in separating the nice black loamy topsoil from the sub.
The topsoil's under the tarp, under the plastic, and the other
Right.
is the stuff they're gonna haul away. But
And
yeah,
that's probably all the maintenance it would need is to make sure that the plastic stays there.
Okay, well, it's worth asking because we could be buying dirt a year from now.
or 2 years from now.
I'm ever hopeful.
Yeah.
And,
Yes,
and maybe the pump track might be needed before then at Quarry Park.
That is a thought. Yeah, does Nicholas need the contract? They wouldn't have to haul it very far.
Matthew, do you want to touch on the BOD issue at all?
Oh, yes, I should. Sam is, as an entity, is still convinced that Princeton is the main source at these high BOD inputs. Although at the last meeting, I did get them to point out or admit that at least once in April, a extraordinarily high count came from the Kelly Street area in Half Moon Bay as well. And so Kishin is still intent on calling what they think are the most likely sources together in a workshop and asking questions like, have you changed your procedures, or do you have any reason to believe that your input has gone up in certain ways, and then try to sort of train them to not do that. But
Yeah.
specific sources, well, they keep pointing right at Hop Dogma, the brewery, and as our
The
general
200 gallons a
manager,
day.
yeah, as our general manager has pointed out, that if every single thing they put in their sewer from that place was nothing but BOD, they couldn't raise it as much as the numbers we've seen.
Not that.
So,
Yeah, and I got more data from Kishin, and I took the time to put it in a spreadsheet and did some analysis on it, which really wasn't that difficult. And just so if we want to get this on the record, the Princeton BOD, where it goes into the Princeton pump station, for the last 6 months has averaged 628 BOD. And the Kelly Avenue connection from Half Moon Bay has averaged 667. So what's that? 50 points higher. And I'm not saying that to point fingers at Half Moon Bay, because the results of my analysis, I struggle to find a correlation between the higher influent BOD and when the plant can't handle it. It just doesn't, there's no direct correlation, and I didn't expect there to be, because our flows are too low to have an impact on the plant. So, you know, I think we wait until see what happens with the Brown and Caldwell study and see where that goes, because I can't find a real firm correlation. You know, their recent BOD is in the 350s, 400s, which is kind of normal for that plant. Their initial basin BOD isn't that high. No. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna send an email to Kish and Matthew, similar to the one I sent to you and Barbara with updated numbers, the one you had asked if you could circulate. I will circulate that.
Okay, great.
With these numbers. And so I get a little annoyed when they keep pointing at Princeton against all logic and data.
And the other thing happening on that is that when they had the high BOD coming in and going out, they switched the plant, and I truly don't understand what they're talking about, from the carbonaceous method they've been running the plant on to a nitrogenation, a nitrifying process. And then they were subsequently advised that by, I believe it was someone who worked for SAM years ago and was there when they expanded the plant and implemented new procedures, and who told them, this system will not run on high nitrogen. You have to go back to the carbonaceous procedure, and they are proceeding to do that now. So I don't know how much difference that's going to make.
Yeah,
The change was recommended by Dan, who was the consultant that was brought in, large in the recommendation of Half Moon Bay, I believe, to advise the Kishin and the leadership at SAM. And the Brown and whatever the consultants who are there now recommended immediately going back to the old system, which they are doing.
Yeah, it was a guy named Chuck Fenton, who I believe, and the guy who was the original operator, Matthew, is on the Brown and Caldwell team.
Right.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So that should be really helpful to find out what they have to say about this, and maybe we'll get this all resolved.
And again, this is for 9 days of exceedance in 20 years.
And maybe I'm easily convinced, but I really think that Chuck has shown that this is a process problem and not an input problem. So the last thing I'll have to say about SAM is they hit almost 56% of the flow in February, and so they're consistently above their 50%.
Oh yeah, that's what I also wanted to share about the budget for next year, which is that it's flow based, and so now GCSD has the lowest share of the budget at just over 20%, I believe. Montera is now a little bit higher at 21, and Half Moon Bay is in the high 50s. So, you know, I think it's based on the amount of use that it's who's using the plant is how this is determined. But this actually does work to our benefit. The fact that the people of El Granada are using less. So, good job, everybody in El Granada.
Yes. Okay, I think that's enough for Sam. We're going to the consent agenda. I'd like to ask some questions about the April warrants. So I'm going to pull that. Does anyone else want to?
I just wanted to make a brief comment on the revenue and expenses report, just a comment, which is I just noted that we are over budget in engineering services, and that's because of the Medio Bridge sewer replacement and the capital improvement program, which is about to start, which we should probably have, said something about at the beginning of the meeting. So that makes sense. They're just, and our legal services are higher than budgeted because the lawsuit is creeping its way toward hopefully a resolution sometime this year. So I just wanted to note that we did have some expenditures that were over budget, but all for very good reasons.
Yeah,
And as
and
long
I
as
had-
we're, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I had noted that about a couple months ago, because those engineering expenses should be expensed to the project. So I had alerted Clayton to that. Or I don't know. Did anything ever come of that, Delia? What do you remember?
I just talked to him about it today,
Oh,
so
okay. All right.
we're working on it.
Okay.
Okay, great. But it's still, the fact that it shows up is understandable.
Yeah.
And just for the community, we didn't actually, we should probably have said this earlier in the meeting. I actually, it comes up later in the, maybe we should just wait till engineers report at this point. But, okay, we'll do that.
Yeah.
So does anyone else have anything they want to talk about that's on consent? If not,
No,
do we
move
have a
approval
motion?
for move approval of everything except what Matthew pulled.
Warrants.
Yes. Move
Second.
approval of everything except the warrants.
Okay, no discussion. Let's have the roll call, please.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Sukamel,
Aye.
Director Dye,
Aye.
Director Marsh,
Aye.
and Director Seaton.
Aye.
All right, motion passes 5-0.
Who seconded that?
I did, Nancy.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, on the warrants, it just struck me why there's the first item listed went to the city of Half Moon Bay, and it's for the CDP on the Murata Road project. But the account it's attributed to is the Half Moon Bay Parks reimbursement.
Yeah, that's wrong. That'll
Ah,
be fixed.
oh, okay.
Sorry, I didn't.
It
catch
should be in
that.
the
I
same
usually
one
press-
as the one that, sorry, yeah, the Medio 1617-1 Medio Creek Crossing in Murata.
Right, it should be
Right,
put
yeah.
into the project.
Okay, thanks. And the other one is just a point of interest. Richards, Watson, and Gershon, a legal professional services for a legal cost of $30. Where'd you find a lawyer that bills for $30?
Chuck?
I call them our new lawyer, Matthew.
Ah,
Well, so explain, please explain.
There's a labor attorney that has been answering just minor questions and reviewing the personnel system manual. So we haven't used them substantially, and that's why their bill is so small.
oh, I'm just going to slip this in. We need to pay attention to the how employee reviews are done. I believe Sam has spent like $100,000 on this guy Boucher Law. He's great, but this was for the evaluation of the general manager, and it's taken over a year, and it's been crazy complicated. And how can you spend that kind of money to evaluate an employee? So.
Well, and if you are, why aren't you spending it with me?
Well, I
in the
just
resume.
like to defend that a little bit, which is that in the past, we've had major problems with the SAM general manager, and they went 3 years without a review. And it was important to set up a process to do a proper review. I agree it was a little excessive, but I think it was a comprehensive and well thought out review with really specific measures for improvement and recognizing achievements, I think in a very good way. Next time, it will not be as complicated a process, but I think it protects the agency from some of the problems that have happened in the past when there have been managers that weren't doing a good job and were never held accountable.
I actually think it's really important to have, particularly for the general manager, a really good, clear, and well-documented performance review system. I just wouldn't go to a law firm and pay their rates to do it. I might have a lawyer review it, but just having a law firm develop and create one seems like not the right horses for courses.
So they specialize in personnel. It's a law
Oh,
firm specialized
So
in
do
labor.
HR people and
And labor law.
consultants.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that's a really good point. Yeah, I'm surprised to know that it was that expensive because.
Yeah, you want a labor lawyer to look it over, but they don't need to
Yeah,
do the
I
design.
do think it was really important thing to do and to start the process right.
I agree.
doing
It was
right.
important, but it was,
Expensive.
yeah, and really sort of, I thought over the top and, yeah, expensive. All right, committee, we're going, now at item 8, committee reports. Reports on seminars, conferences, or committee meetings.
Was there, Matthew, did I miss it? Was there a motion to approve the
Warrants.
warrants?
No, there was.
No. There was
I
not.
move that we approve the warrants.
Oh, the warrants,
as
you're
revised.
right. I forgot that.
As revised.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We already discussed it. Roll call, please.
Director Clark,
Aye.
Director Sukamel,
Aye.
Director Dye,
Aye.
Director Marsh,
Aye.
and Director Seaton.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you, Bill. We now move to committee reports.
I'll just report briefly that K&K is back to work on the Burnham Park plan, working very closely with the RCD. We're going out with an RFQ for a civil engineer to start providing information to K&K to help them produce a plan ready to go to the county. And following that, at some point, we will also do either a request for qualifications or a request for proposal for a CEQA consultant to, they're ready, K&K is ready to start really focusing again on getting the plan ready to submit to the county. Probably there will be a meeting with the county sometime in the next couple months as we get to the right point where it's ready to have feedback from the county. So things are starting to move on the park, which is exciting.
Has the water, the subject of where we get water been added to the RFP?
Yes, I brought that up and got it in there with
Yeah.
Chuck's help.
And so it's my understanding that K&K will have that RFP for our review next month.
No, well, I think the RFQ is ready to go out. It's the contract with K&K for the next phase of work will come to our board at the next month. Am I correct, Chuck?
Correct, yes.
Oh,
I think if people would like to review the
You want-
RFQ, I think that could be arranged.
Yeah, Matthew, would you like me to circulate that?
Sure, why not? And the idea of an RFQ rather than a request for proposal is because it's a little bit open-ended. What amount of work is going to be done? So the RFQ, this was a suggestion from the RCD, which seemed to make sense, was that to go out and ask, give them the scope of the project, ask for their qualifications, and ask for them to talk about how they would approach the project. So the proposals will come back and what their hourly rates would be and what their expertise is and so forth, because they're looking for people to do drainage, to do the street improvements, to do water sourcing, and all the cut and fill, all the grading stuff for the park. So that's a little hard to say right now, like, here's the exact amount of work and give us a proposal for the work. So they're going to come back with rates and scope and background.
I'll flag, the PAC has a meeting on Monday, the 26th, week after next at 7 o'clock. They'll be working on their work agenda for the rest of this year. If anybody would like to sit in on that.
The Park Advisory Committee.
Yeah.
right. Okay, I think that does 8. Item 9, attorney's report.
No report, and I'll only charge $30 for that.
Excellent. Bill, I like to ask we're revising the ordinance code about additional dwelling units and how many ERUs we'll charge. When can we see that?
We're hoping to get it on the agenda for next month.
Good.
There's been some recent changes in the law, which Chuck and I discussed, and so we just need to make sure it's all simpatico with that.
Great.
I wanted to just say, the RCD sent over some new information on new legislation about prevailing wage. It didn't look like that was going to actually affect us. I forwarded it to you. I didn't know if you had a chance to look at it.
I've heard about that case, Barbara. I haven't read the case yet, but I don't think, based on what I know of the summary, I don't think it's going to affect us.
It's about whether a public agency that hires a private company, if the private company has to then pay prevailing wage. And since
and I've always been of the opinion that that is the case in any event. So it seems like it was a little push of the envelope, and there you are. So, but
yeah. Thank you.
Well,
Item 10, managers report.
I've got nothing further.
Item 11, administrative staff report.
Sorry, have to unmute myself there. Well, I provided you the pictures that were taken by Tucker Construction, who did the cleanup on the Burnham property there in the riparian area. As you see, it was a mess. They did a really great job this time, got all the little bits of stuff. And yeah, it was, I haven't received a bill yet, but it's been cleaned up. Aside from that too, I also posted a notice on an RV that was out there for at least one or two nights, I believe. And they were gone the next day, so it worked. So I'm happy to report that. And nothing further.
Well done. Great job.
Thank you.
I think we all need to help out, because I don't know that we certainly don't want our staff going alone to check out the homeless area. I think I don't know if we could do a sign up or once a week, just a couple of us go and check out to make sure that there's nothing further there. Certainly if there are reports that there are people there, I would be happy to go with someone else down and check it out. So let's make sure that we all try to help out with that.
I forgot to mention that I bought an aluminum no trespassing sign at Ace Hardware, and I wrote no camping on it, and I nailed it to a tree in that area where they were camping. And Deputy Fu said if they catch them out there, they can cite them or even potentially arrest them for trespassing. So right now, I noticed that the people there are on the Caltrans side again. So they're still there, but they're just not on our side.
The same people?
Yes. Yep. I saw him yesterday and I think today as well. He's just on the other side of the logs by the escape ramp.
Yeah, I know at one point we were complaining to, I was sending notices to Caltrans telling them you need to take care of it. And Caltrans sent something back saying, oh, he's gone because he'd moved over to our side.
Yeah, there's got to be some kind of permanent help for these people. And I just, I can't solve the problem, but, we'll just deal with it the best we can.
He's smart enough to outwit us and Caltrans, as it turns out. So,
So I think it's actually a little group. We were on a walk and I saw Delia leaving. I think after she posted the notice, and about 5 minutes later, a guy walked up and then a minivan drove up behind and like two other people. And so I think they're probably moving spot to spot and kind of, it's kind of a couple of them. And I mean, I go back to, we talked about a little bit, the legal dumping. Could we work out on something on that end where some of these sites that do dumping, can we work out a voucher program where we buy a couple to maybe that could be a way to say, listen, to get them started so that, eventually they're on their own, but so that there's the facilitation of getting that set up, because obviously I think that's what it comes down to. Not only are these an issue, there's only so much we could do them going site to site. They're going to keep moving and they're going to do that forever. But I bet you these same ones are ones doing illegal dumping. And that's where I think it is, what can we do? I think we talked about it before, but maybe revisiting that, getting that as an agenda item that, to address the little things that we could do to maybe improve something on that end.
Okay, I'll put it on the future agenda list.
That's a really, really tough problem. Delia, didn't the sheriffs suggest that they would be willing to pay more attention to the location if they could see into the willows better?
He did. And Barbara, Director Dye was there as well, and she had mentioned, I think, were you checking with the RCD on that? And that we could trim the bushes a little bit.
It just seems like, given the fact that we're about to undergo various environmental
yeah.
review, it's not a good idea. So, unfortunately.
And I was going to also mention that the RCD has suggested that we try to revitalize the areas that have been made barren by the people living there by planting more willows, which is really quite simple. You cut a branch off of an existing willow and stick it in the ground, and most of them take root and grow. So I don't know. Anyone want to go have a trim the trees and replant them party down there?
The harder it is for people to get in there, the better, really.
Yeah.
But they tend to blaze a trail, after time. I noticed there's another trail up the highway that people are using to go in and use the bushes to do their business. And it's unfortunate because, there's a lot of water around there. I don't know where the creek goes exactly, but, it's just not, I just don't know how we'd keep people out from the highway side. But there are quite a few little trails, and you can see the paper and the various spots in there.
Yeah.
Some of it's on Caltrans, but some of it is deep enough to be on ours as well.
Put up a sign that says this creek flows directly into the surf water that you're wading into.
When people have to go, it doesn't really matter that much. I think having the harbor district putting in the restrooms will help, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
I'll mention that the Regional Water Board people who did a presentation at SAM, I should have brought that up about SAM, that they did a presentation about the amended basin plan that we're subject to because the Princeton Harbor tests too high for various bacteria, as well as Venice Beach. But they specifically noted that their samples from Surfers Beach did not exceed the legal limits, which surprised me. But they were testing for Enterococcus, which is an indicator bacteria that pollution is coming from other biological organisms, and they didn't mention E. coli. So I don't know if the same is true for E. coli samples at Surfers Beach, but at least as of now, the Water Board is not pushing us to specifically address Surfers Beach, but they don't have to because they're pushing us to examine and fix anything we need to within a half mile of the beach, which is at least 2/3 of the district. So, yeah. All right. Thank you, Delia. Engineers report.
Nothing. John is doing John Rayner, our district engineer, is doing a really great job of prosecuting both the CIP, the sewer main replacement program, which is going to start You just told me and I've already forgotten. Very soon. Do
No,
you
I
know
have it
what
right
what
here.
day it
It-
starts? Yeah.
I have
Pre-construction
the
meeting,
information. It's going to, the CCTV of the sewers will begin soon. Sewer construction should start in early May, and nearby residents will be notified of sewer construction ahead of time, probably via door hangers. Construction is expected to be complete by mid-July. That's in part one, which is Isabella, Palma, and Alhambra.
and that just,
Okay.
will there be street signs posted as well, or just door hangers?
They have historically done street signs. I'd have to ask John about that.
Yeah,
And then the other project, which I don't know is more important, but is John has really pushed hard on, is the the realigning the pipeline at Meteor Creek Crossing. And that's a little bit of a race between when the county starts the project and, it took us a while to get that CDP from Half Moon Bay. So I think the CDP has gone through its review process and then there's an additional 10 days and then they can get moving on it. So it's still a little bit of a race, but he's really done a good job chasing them down.
He says we're going to award the construction contract at our May 20th board meeting, and then they think construction will begin in mid-June and be completed in about 2 months.
Thank you. I'm going to have you do the engineer's report. I lost my agenda, so I don't have it in front of me.
I sent him an email yesterday asking him what the timing was. So
Oh,
good.
I saw that. Yeah.
I wanted to report it at the MCC meeting, so that people in the community would know what was going to be happening.
Okay, last item, future agenda items. I want to start by really pushing, right now, we have listed as item 10 as financing for parks, and I'd like to push that up to number 1. It's time to, in my opinion, it's time to start talking about how we're going to finance perhaps a lot of studies and then construction at the park and by the old fire station building and start fixing it for our use simultaneously. So, and people have been asking me, there are people who are still worried that, well, sewer rates will have to go up because they haven't understood that the sewer budget and financing is completely separate from Parks and Rec. And I have one other comment. I saw the county's property taxes numbers, and it apparently shows that we're going to receive $779,000 from the county in refunded property taxes for next fiscal year. But I don't know, Chuck, are those numbers that they present to you like that? Is that the real number, or because don't we usually get more in the range of $500,000?
Yeah, it's been going up each year. I don't know what you were looking at, Matthew. Generally, they send us a letter that says, here's your allocation for the year, but they make a point of saying it doesn't back out that ERAF portion of it, that the Educational Relief Augmentation Fund.
Oh, so that they keep some of, but not
Yes.
all.
So they keep it all, and then we're one of the few places that gets a refund on that. Who's
well,
so,
for some reason, the county sent me an email saying, from the assessor's office or the controller's office, whichever, they were sort of crowing about the fact that the value of real estate and hence the taxes throughout the county continue to skyrocket.
Yeah, the turnover here has had astounding prices, over asking from the real estate folks that I know. But it's been more like 600,000 to 700,000 the last few years.
Yeah, it's higher. So the first number they send us is higher, then it gets reduced. Because I think you and I were talking about it, Nancy, is 700 is a closer number. You know, I've been doing this for 25 years, even with Prop 13 and these limitations and all that. I don't ever remember having a reduction in property tax receipts, not here or down south. It just goes
That's-
up. So, yeah, no, you know,
That's-
the downturn in 2008 didn't affect it. Downturns earlier on didn't affect it. So,
Last year,
Yeah.
we received $705,000 in property taxes and $360,000 in ERAF refund.
Wow.
so the ERAF, they have their sights on. There's a lawsuit wending its way through somewhere because somebody doesn't like the fact that we're getting that money back. So I don't know where that will go, but you know, we've been getting it for a good long time now. And I want to be careful when we tell people our sewer rates won't be affected by parks because they are separate entities. They are indeed separate entities, but if we purpose property tax to the park side, you know,
It's still subsidizing sewers a little bit.
right now, the legislative analyst's office doesn't want you to use property taxes for what's called an enterprise district, the sewer side. So we're doing what government wants us to do, but you know, this was a point that was made when we filed our LAFCO application, you know, where we said, you know, it's not going to affect them because they're separate. You know, there'll be some effect, but they are indeed separate.
But in the vote, when they went out for the vote, it says that property taxes might, I mean, that property taxes might go, you know, the sewer tax might go
Might
up
go
to
up.
cover this.
I know.
But it, yeah, so
And
it
then I
was
wrote-
disclosed.
Yeah, and I wrote further that would have an effect on sewer rates. The sewer rates will not rise because we have parks, but yeah,
But because we stopped subsidizing sewers with money that shouldn't be subsidizing sewers.
right.
And now this money is protected from being completely taken away, which could happen.
Because we're using it on parks.
And
Although
I also
And
want
you're
to
going to get great parks.
I
wanna
just don't
thank
want you to be
Nancy.
shanghaied.
I want to thank Nancy for sending out a succinct memo today
That's not succinct.
about why we need to consider funding and at least get. I know we can't have here's a solid funding plan yet. This is exactly how we're going to do it. But you know, there's two ways to do big expenditures. You can either say, oh, let's dream of what we want and go try to get it. And then there's, let's see how much money we have to spend on this dream. And then let's tailor the dream to this. And I highly advocate the second procedure. That's why you don't go out and look for a $25 million house if you have $500,000 to spend. So,
I had a
And-
good chat with Chuck yesterday, who made me feel better about our ability to access loans, because I didn't even know if the district could do that. But it got me thinking about, okay, then what do we really need to know? And from my perspective, because we need to explain it really clearly to the community, because we got so many we got this thread of comments back from our last outreach that people are still concerned about what it's going to cost. Will we have money for maintenance if we build it? You know, will we spend all our money on building, and where does the money come from? So I think we should just have a good public discussion and then write a good article to post with the parks information on the website that explains it, that we can keep referring people to. I had forgotten about what I didn't put in that note that I just wrote at 5 o'clock, so you might not have seen it yet, is I did put in there that we could get a revenue stream from a community center by renting out the space, as the community centers we benchmark do, and get a cut of whatever classes are there. But the other, you know, we should also be able to communicate that we would also research grants and any other special funding we could get that isn't from our revenue stream. So we have several ways to get ongoing funding. So I got less worried about it after our discussion. I just want to be able to do that same kind of deep information to the community for the skeptics who are looking for a reason to throw grenades.
Yeah, and I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put together a spreadsheet. I'm gonna have to pick some numbers. Okay, I'm gonna have to
Yeah.
pick some numbers, and it's gonna be a number of $5 million for whatever the number is. And I'll put financing options to it. I'm gonna try and keep it real simple. I'll also get we've got a financing group, Brandis Tallman, that we've used in the past. I think I'd mentioned this. I just got funding for my solar project down south a couple, 3 months ago. So they're a good resource. I've heard Bartle Wells does this stuff too. That's who Monterey uses. So I'll put together some stuff. I'll also manage expectations a little for the next 2 months. This is our busy time. We've got, aside from everything happening at SAM, we've got our budgets. We've got the sewer service charge report we're pushing through. We're going to have a Prop 218 discussion. So I'll put this stuff together, but that's going to be our priority for the next couple of months.
If it's just sort of, for example, this is how it could work.
Yeah, and that should be a simple, straightforward spreadsheet. And I could show you what our financing options are, whether it be a mortgage, a construction loan, a certificate of participation, that kind of stuff.
Great, that would be great.
And I'd like to make sure that our discussion includes the last bit that Nancy just mentioned, researching grants and getting on that.
Yeah, Bob, at our workshop for the park, Bob Nesbitt from Halfmoon Bay told me about some of the, I forget which measure it was, with the county, but that it gets doled out based on head count, and we ought to be able to access some of that money because we're creating something for county residents.
And it has been coming up at the Mid-Coast Community Council that there's a need for a community center and that the county should be funding it. So we may want to come to them for some help with that.
And that may be the money that Leonard always talked about, like 7% development tax the county collects. That ring a bell to anybody who's been around a while? Matthew?
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't even know about that. It's a mitigation fee on development.
Yeah.
And this was years ago, and Leonard said he had checked it out and that there should be, and this is only for the mid-coast here, that there should be just over $500,000 in it. And when he went to research it, it seems to have gone somewhere else.
Well, Dave Olson says there's only about 400,000 in that fund right now, but hey,
Oh, okay.
we'll take it.
Yeah. So that's just another chunk of money that should partly be available to us.
And the community center makes sense because the community center will serve a larger area, certainly.
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right.
Okay, anything else on future agenda items? Okay, my gavel has just gone down. This meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep.
Thank
Thanks,
you all.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maybe I'll see you tomorrow morning. I think she said okay.